Welcome to the league with your host. I'm Benoy Thanjan. You might know me as the Solar Maverick, and David McGee. It's May 8th, 2026. You give us 5 minutes, we give you the latest clean energy trends. The two clean energy stories I'm watching this week are connected by one big theme. Policy, certainty, and behind the meter energy are becoming more important than ever. The first story is that House Republicans are reportedly looking at bringing back or extending the investment tax credit for clean energy. For solar and storage, this matters a lot because the tax credit is one of the biggest drivers of project economics. And specifically with solar, you see a big drop down with the investment tax credit coming up in the next few years. The key point is simple. The solar industry needs policy certainty. Development timelines are long. Interconnection takes time. Financing, permitting, and when tax credit rules change quickly or deadlines become too aggressive, projects can get delayed, repriced, or canceled. But obviously, you should plan for what it currently is now. I don't think anyone should assume this automatically becomes law. There's still major political hurdles, but the fact that there's a discussion around restoring extending clean energy tax credits shows how important solar and storage have become. There's no longer just a climate issue, it's an affordability issue, an energy security issue, a jobs issue, and an American competitive issue. I know I've said this multiple times, like solar is the cheapest form of electricity and the fastest to come online, and it truly keeps you independent with its, from the grid or from obviously if something happens to the transmission and distribution network. Obviously, there's a lot of fake news. Our president likes to talk about fake news, but unfortunately, like the solar story, there has been a lot of fake news about that. At the end of the day, it's the cheapest and fastest to come online. And the second story is Black Bear's Energy's 2025 Real Estate Solar Leaderboard, which tracks on site solar across major real estate owners and managers. This is especially exciting because I'm actually interviewing Victoria, the CEO of Black Bear Energy, on the Solar Maverick podcast to talk about this report and what it says about the future of commercial real estate and distributed energies. One of the biggest takeaways is that commercial real estate owners have crossed a major milestone with more than 1 gigawatt of installed on-site capacity across thousands of energy projects. That's a big deal because behind the meter solar is becoming a real value creation for real estate owners. This is not just about sustainability, as I talked about it before. It's about lowering operating costs, creating new revenue streams, improving resilience, turning rooftops, parking lots, and commercial buildings into productive energy assets. And I think this is where the market's heading. Real estate owners are sitting on some of the most valuable clean energy infrastructure in the country. They have rooftops, parking lots, loads, tenants, and the ability to pair solar with storage and EV charging. Obviously, we've talked about too, like electricity prices are going up dramatically. This is a great way to obviously hedge your cost of electricity. My big takeaway from all this is the industry needs both pieces. We need stable federal tax policy to unlock capital. We need more real estate owners treating solar and storage and distributed energy as profit centers, and energy is usually their second biggest cost. The next wave of clean energy growth is not just coming from utility scale projects, it's coming from these types of distributed energy behind the meter projects. And that's that.
Benoy, as always, such great topics. I'm really excited to listen to this interview with the Black Bear folks and hear what they have to say and what's going on in the CNI market there.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be a lot of great insights. We'll obviously go in a lot more detail about that report. So if you're interested in learning more, we'll have the link to that interview once it comes out.
That's right. So one trend that we're going to start discussing today is as it relates to construction costs. We're going to start with modules, solar modules, non-FEOC compliant solar modules have hit 27 cents per watt is what the market is seeing as of April of 2026. This is compared to approximately 40 to 45 cents per watt for FEOC compliant modules. reason we're seeing this dramatic drop in the price is the fact that a lot of projects that have not safe harbored, there is a nominal amount of panels, and it's actually driven down the cost of these solar modules that are not FEOC compliant. So if you safe harbor panels or do not plan to use the ITC, then you actually are in luck with some very low cost solar panels. Looking on the same aspect of building costs, inverters have frankly been roughly the same cost for years now. They're hovering about 4 cents a watt, and this is from 6 cents a couple years ago, 5 cents. So those have been fairly stable. Racking, on the other aspect of it, has fluctuated a decent amount. We're seeing racking at this moment fluctuating from approximately 22 cents, all the way to 13 cents a watt. When I'm discussing racking, really what I'm referring to is ground mounted structures, referring to these fixed tilt axis systems. And then as you're looking at these projects as a whole, one thing that we're starting to notice is markets such as Illinois, when you look at the cost of the actual equipment of having to comply with all of the new regulations to actually try to attempt to receive the ITC before the sunset date, most time it does not make sense in this market. It does not make sense to be able to go through all this stringent activity to be able to capture that, because you're literally losing predominantly about your value, and you can generate more value with less struggle by actually not going for the tax credit and be able to get equipment at a lower cost and to be able to get your project done probably a lot quicker and more efficient. So excited to see where that goes, from a solar market perspective in those specific areas, perhaps Maryland, Illinois, and other regions such as this that have very favorable state policies. Next topic is, of course, your folks at Brookfield, who feel like they got tentacles into every single company, have established a joint venture with the nuclear company. Great name for a startup doing nuclear, is just the nuclear company. And this joint venture, that has been established, had initially been targeting for the nuclear company to focus on these SMR technologies. They have done a slight pivot, not a full pivot, but they're focusing their initial efforts on really the low-hanging fruit. When I'm talking about the low-hanging fruit with the nuclear, almost sounds like an oxymoron just because of the way that nuclear is set up. But there is a dramatic amount of nuclear projects that have been abandoned during the construction process. And this focus and this effort of the joint venture is going to be working on repowering and taking these stranded assets and making them valuable. When I first heard of the fact of the risks exposed of construction and these projects literally being abandoned midway, it was frankly astonishing to me. But clearly the fact of the overruns and the cost of these projects and how expensive these projects can get when you're developing nuclear really says it all. And now it's just created a great opportunity. We're going to start to see these projects starting getting focused on initially, as well as existing nuclear operating facilities that are going to be expanding. And this is what's going to occur first, as we roll into the next phase of new projects that will be developed, which clearly is going to take several years down the road, but it is going to come. You've just enjoyed 5 minutes of the absolute best information in the clean tech sector. So good job. You've learned a lot of information. Stay tuned, and God bless.